to another Apollo Papyrus podcast episode. I am Aaron Apollo Camp. For this episode, my interview guest is the author of the Stefania DiMaggio series of thriller novels, which include the novels The Secret Heir, The Vacant Seat, and The Lost Painting. His name is CJ Toca, and my interview with CJ will follow the note-taking sounds. CJ Toca, welcome to the Apollo Papyrus podcast.
Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate it being on.
Feel free to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Hi, I'm CJ Toca. I'm an author. I've published 3 books in the same series. The first being The Vacant Seat, the second being The Secret Heir, the third, which just was released, The Lost Painting. The Vacant Seat was briefly an Amazon bestseller on Kindle. And I enjoy writing about historical, mythical, religious, and spiritual subjects with a dash of intrigue and mystery and suspense. So all of them contain those elements. And that's what I've been doing since The Vacant Seat was published. All 3 have some of the same characters, certainly the same protagonist, and some of them have gotten pretty good reviews. The Vacant Seat got very good reviews, and we've gotten good reviews so far on The Lost Painting. So that's who I am, and that's what I do.
Before I ask you to go into detail about each of the novels, they all share the same main protagonist, and that is Stefania DiMaggio. What was the inspiration for the Stefania DiMaggio character?
Well, the first book, The Vacant Seat, is it has significant sort of religious undertones, and I would say if readers liked like any of Dan Brown's books, or liked The Conclave, the Vacant Seat is that kind of book. And I try to include both in my characters and in a lot of aspects of the book, indirect references to important things. So the inspiration for the Stefania DiMaggio character is really a strong feminine protagonist who grows with the book, and she grows with each book. She really, like people grow, and I've said that in other interviews. But first, I'll talk about the name, because The Vacant Seat as I said, is similar to Dan Brown's books and is similar to The Conclave. It has a strong reference to Catholic, Roman Catholic mysticism and the Catholic Church. Stefania DiMaggio, the name was chosen because Saint Stephen was the first martyr of the church, so her name is a female of Stephen. And the last name DiMaggio because May is the month of Mary, and The Vacant Seat has a significant amount of connotations to Mary. So that is why the name was chosen. So there is a background to the name. But as to the persona of Stefania, she's she's a journalist who starts out as a novice in the first book, in The Vacant Seat. She's not religious. She doesn't like religion at all. And she grows throughout the book. And she starts out being very frightened by a lot of the dangerous undertakings that she's involved with. But through the 3 books, she becomes rather adept at it, much to her own surprise and chagrin. So that's sort of the story behind Stefania. The whole idea is that she was supposed to be someone who grows like we all grow. So she starts out as someone right out of well, not right out of university, but shortly after university, and she gets a job and an assignment she's not thrilled with, like many of us do, and then she grows into that over a period of years. And it also explores her relationship with another main character, Thomas Houghton, and there are some reasons behind that name as well. But so that's hopefully that answers your question, Aaron. It's a long-winded answer.
Your first novel is titled The Secret Heir. Without spoiling too much about The Secret Heir, what is that book about?
Okay, so The Secret Heir was first published. It's a prequel. It's a sequel, really, to The Vacant Seat. The Vacant Seat is the first, really, in the time sequence. But The Secret Heir is now Stefania's been a journalist for a while, and she has been connected now with Thomas for a while, and she sort of stumbles upon a mystery, and she needs someone with assets and wherewithal to help her out, and that person is Thomas, because Thomas is a British Duke. He's very well connected in the United Kingdom, this issue, and in the Vatican. And this issue involves, to a certain extent, both the United Kingdom and the Vatican. And she enlists Thomas's help. So, and in the process of finding out where this mystery leads, they get involved ultimately in what is a very, very complicated international conspiracy that involves the Russians and involves other folks in the UK who Thomas knows. And Stefania puts it all together at the very end. So in the book jogs us through several continents, some very interesting places, including Malta, including Turkmenistan, including the Cape Verde Islands, and ultimately Arizona, and then back to in Mexico and back to the UK. So it's a sort of a globe-trotting mystery, intrigue, suspense, with a little bit of a spiritual edge, not as much as the Vacant Seat, but in The Secret Heir, Stefania also has sort of this sixth sense, and it becomes more acute. So once again, the Secret Heir is written from her perspective. The Vacant Seat had several points of view in it. So that's sort of a brief synopsis of The Secret Heir. It really was the sequel to The Vacant Seat. It was published first in the hopes of getting interest in the precursor book, or the prequel, which was The Vacant Seat. And it seemed to, because The Vacant Seat, I think, sold better and was better received overall. It won an award, so that's really what the Secret Heir is. I happen to think that The Secret Heir is better. I like it. It's better written, and I think it has some very interesting aspects to it. The ending had to be modified several times, but that hopefully that answers your question. I really like the plot. I like a lot of the characters in The Secret Heir that I created, the ancillary characters. So that's sort of the story behind The Secret Heir. And if you're, you have a little bit of sense of history. I mean, my intent in all these books is to not only hopefully entertain folks, but to inform them. So there's a lot of history and geographical and other issues raised in The Secret Heir, some spiritual, not as much as in The Vacant Seat, then hopefully people will be intrigued by and learn about.
As you mentioned, another one of your novels is The Vacant Seat. Without spoiling too much of The Vacant Seat, what is that novel about?
So as I said, this is a very closely, well, it's not akin to, it's a type of novel, as I said, that may be like the Da Vinci Code or a Conclave type of novel. So basically, Stefania gets her first journalism job at a periodical in Italy. She's half Italian and half Brazilian. Her mother resides in Brazil. Her father resides in Rome. He's a university professor. Her mother has a fashion house in Brazil where Stefania had worked right out of university. She went to University of the United States. And she really was helping her mother with her fashion house. And then she really wanted to do journalism. So her dad got her a job with a periodical in Rome. So she's fluent in both Italian, Portuguese, English, Spanish, and Latin, which is important for the book. So she gets her first job with this periodical, and it involves a mundane subject regarding an article about a pope from about 80 years ago. And she's not religious, and B, she's borderline an atheist, and she's not interested in it. Nevertheless, she, much to her surprise, she's doing her research at the Vatican Secret Archives. She comes upon something, and her boss asks her to follow up. She doesn't want to follow up, but she does, and she happens to meet Thomas, who's involved in all these books because he's a British Duke. He's also very involved in the Vatican, and she meets with him, and he decides to assist her for his own purposes. And little by little, they discover various clues relating to something that happened much later than the time frame that she was asked to investigate, and stuff that's really been secret, potentially one of the greatest secrets of the 20th century. And it's all based upon true historical materials, historical people in history, historical writings, manuscripts. Most of it has some basis in history, and this leads them on a multi-continental trip. But it's written from the points of view of several people, including her main nemesis, who is their nemesis in each of the books, a woman named Svetlana Grushenko, who is an assistant director of the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, known as the Russian SVR. And the Russians don't want the secret that Stefania's discovered ever to see the light of day. And our others don't want it to ever see the light of day. And much to their, without really knowing it, Stefania and Thomas are really in the crosshairs of perhaps the Russians and others throughout the book, until the final sequence where, similar to an Agatha Christie novel, everything is exposed, but the Russians, with the Russians and the Vatican, and I think it's a very powerful ending, and it propels us to both the next book, which is the first one released, The Secret Heir, and then it even serves as a basis to a certain extent for The Lost Painting, which is the third book. And of course, in the Vacant Seat, Thomas and Stefania develop a romantic inclination, but someone who has to read the book to find out how that ends. But there's a lot of twists and turns in this book. It brings you from the UK to Spain to Italy to Brazil, Russia, and it's very heavily researched. And I really like the plot in the book. I really like how I linked everything together. I think my writing has gotten better since the first book, but this was the best received so far, although the jury's still out on the last one, the Lost Painting, which was just released a couple of weeks ago. So without giving away the end, the plot of the Vacant Seat, it's a terrific, I think, sort of mystery thriller with a real historical bent. And if you liked The Conclave, if you liked the Da Vinci Code, if you like Dan Brown's books, and even Daniel Silva's books, it's a great book to read, I think, in my opinion.
Your third novel, which was just recently published as we record this interview, is titled The Lost Painting. Without spoiling too much of that novel, what is it about?
So, Thomas, the Duke of Radcliffe, who is Stefania's long-lost sort of love interest, has a secret, and he believes that he is being followed and that he is concerned for his safety, and he has to keep this particular fact secret. And the only one he believes he can trust is Stefania. So he gets Stefania up from Rome for a meeting in the UK and enlists Stefania in this scheme, if you will, to keep his secret. And she undertakes it, but in undertaking it, she discovers a significant mystery again, and she decides that she's going to try to solve it, despite the fact that Thomas doesn't really think she should, and it could be dangerous. She decides to do that, and it involves sort of almost sort of smuggling. It involves impersonation, and ultimately it brings her to the Italian Riviera, where she finds herself in the company of some not so savory characters. And I really have to say, I really love these characters that I've invented for this part of the book. They're just terrific characters, and so she becomes involved with them. She ends up falling for one of them, and the Russians, of course, become involved or are involved. Again, this one is also written entirely from Stefania's point of view, and she's unhappy that she is again being influenced or involved with the Russians, and she would love to take out her revenge on Svetlana Grushenko, who once again holds something over Stefania. And Stefania figures out both a way to do that and a way to solve some other significant problems for the folks that she's with, the unsavory characters that she's with. And for one of the first times, with the exception of her love life, this time she, I think, is satisfied. She exacts her revenge, and things more or less work out very well for Stefania. It took 3 books to get there, but I really like the characters that I've invented here. and Grushenko and the Russian SVRs come back, and I've got some plot twists. You don't need to read the other two books to really, I think, appreciate The Lost Painting, but I think a lot of the facts are taken from The Secret Heir, and but I don't think that they're overly pertinent. But there are some quotes from that book, so it might make sense to read the prequel, The Secret Heir. But the I brought back another character from I brought back a character from the Vacant Seat also in The Lost Painting, and certainly Grushenko is back with her assistant Anatoly Popov, and of course Thomas is back, and a friend of Thomas is back who's a private investigator guy who helps them out. And like I said, I invented several new characters down in the Italian Riviera who I just really love these characters. And so much so that I'm working on a fourth book, and that involves all of these characters from the Lost Painting. But The Lost Painting, I think, if you appreciate again history, and there's a lot of history in this book. I mean, it's set in the present day, as all of them are. But if you like history, you can relate to a lot of the things in this book, because a lot of the little tidbits of history that I picked out are true things. Now, I use them for my benefit in fiction, but I mean, a number of very important historical facts are used in this novel. And if you appreciate that kind of thing and you're willing to learn about that kind of thing, I think it makes it that much more interesting. And you can Google or you search on the internet a lot of the facts, and you'll find them. I've heavily researched the book. I looked through a lot of documents online that I could find. So a lot of the stuff is pretty accurate, and I think it makes it that much more interesting. So, in addition to sort of the main premise of the book, which isn't really the Lost Painting, she also solves a number of mysteries in the book, including the Lost Painting. But that's a sideshow, really. As you know, a lot of book titles don't really presage necessarily the plot of the book, but the Lost Painting is a aspect of the book, but it's not the predominant plot line. So that's sort of the skinny on the Lost Painting. I really love this book, and it's gotten some good reviews. I have to put those reviews up on my website, www.cjtoca.com. And people who I've talked to really enjoyed the book. One other thing I'd like to note is that there's a lot of Italian American slang used in this book, and that was also heavily researched. So folks are going to say, well, that's not how it would be said in Italian, but that's how it's said in Italian American slang. And I researched that, and I've had an argument already with my family members on some of this stuff. But I heavily researched how a lot of these words are used in the Italian American vernacular. So if you like mysteries, maybe with a little bit of a mafia touch, I think that The Lost Painting is a book for you, because I wrap in I wrap in a British Duke, the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, the mafia, a huge mystery, and I think it all works out well at the end and comes together very, very nicely. And as I said, it's serving as a foundation for the next book, which is in process. A lot of the same characters, which as I said, I really, really like.
Your novels are set in places that are uncommon for English language novels, such as Brazil, Malta, Turkmenistan, and the Cape Verde Islands, among other places, and as well as some places that one might more commonly associate with settings for English language novels, such as Scotland and New Jersey. How much research do you do about the places where your novels are set?
I do a lot of research in that regard. Another place where in the Secret Heir and the Lost Painting they visit is Arizona in the United States as well. So with regard to a number of the places in Italy, I have been to some of these places. With regard to some of the places in New Jersey and Arizona, I've been to some of those places. Obviously, I've not been to Turkmenistan. It's a difficult country to get into. But I did a lot of research, and I've actually interviewed folks with regard to some of these locales. I actually, with regard to Stefania's clairvoyance, I interviewed a medium to actually to give me an idea on how to address that. That becomes more obvious in the Secret Heir, and then more in the Lost Painting. But as to some of these books, I've been to some of the locales. Where I haven't been, and I was talking to another author at a convention or a conference for fiction writers, and I said, how do you figure out places where you haven't been? How do you put them in your books? And that author said to me, well, imagine what you think of that place, what it would look like. Go online, look at pictures, and think about it. And if you can picture it in your mind, describe it. And so those were pretty good. It was pretty good advice. So I would go online, heavily research the places that I haven't been, and picture it in my mind. And that's how I describe the places in the novel that I haven't been to. Turkmenistan and the Cape Verde Islands certainly being two of them.
Saddle Ridge Publications publishes your books. Is Saddle Ridge an independent, traditional, or hybrid publisher?
It's my own publishing company, and I publish the only thing they publish are my books.
So it's your personal imprint.
Correct.
One final question: if you could meet Stefania DiMaggio in real life, what would you say to her?
I would say I admire how you've grown as a person, because as I've said on numerous other interviews, life isn't static. People grow, and the whole idea behind my books is that people change. And frankly, in the next book, you're going to see even a change with Grushenko. And Thomas has certainly changed. But I would tell her that I admire the fact that she's changed, that she's grown as a person, and now she's become more confident and more assertive and her own person. I think that's what I would like. Certainly, for I have a daughter, and I would love for her to grow in that way as well. So that's what I would say to my main character, to answer your question.
CJ, thank you for appearing on the Apollo Papyrus podcast. It was wonderful to interview you.
Thanks, Aaron. I appreciate it, and thank you for the opportunity.
A major change to how I produce interview episodes for this podcast is coming and I'll provide details in the outro of the next episode. This is Aaron Apollo Camp reminding y'all to find your writing and reading purpose. Bye for now. This podcast episode is intended for the private listening of our audience. Any reuse or retransmission of this podcast episode without the express written consent of the podcast host is prohibited except under fair use guidelines. Royalty-free music and sound effects obtained from https://www.zapsplat.com.